Do you want to use your podcast to attract and retain clients, create powerful referrals and partnerships, and even find top talent? Hi, I'm Toby Goodman, a #1 best-selling author of narrow podcasting, and in my Profitable Pod Method skill sessions, I explain exactly how I help my clients in coaching, healthcare organizations, and even in the space industry create podcasts to support their business. No paid ads, no sponsorships, and without thousands of listeners. Phase 1 pre-production is about prep with 12 sessions where you will get clear on your podcast goals, find 5 ways to get your podcast heard by your ideal listeners, understand how to create your list building freebie, that's your lead magnet, how to keep in touch with your podcast listeners, engage with your listeners beyond your podcast, get your website podcast ready, get your podcast offers in place, understand how to name your podcast, get tips on how to design your podcast art, understand how to identify your ideal podcast listeners, get tips on how to design your podcast soundscape and music, and then at the end of that phase 1, 5 ducks you need to have in place for your podcast. In phase 2 production, this is about what we do around recording your podcast, where you will discover how to choose your podcast guests, how to write podcast episode scripts, how to ensure excellent sound quality, how to prepare your podcast guests, how to evoke emotion in your podcast guests and listeners, how to invite podcast guests so that they say yes, how to make it easy for podcast guests to book their slot with you, how to prepare your podcast guests for your interview, how to make the most of your interviews on other people's podcasts, how to avoid podcast editing pain, how to create your 20-second podcast episode teaser, how to get more from your podcast content. And in phase 3, post-production, this is the crucial narrow podcasting element about what to do after your podcast is live, where the sessions will reveal how to create shareable and searchable assets for each podcast episode, how to get more organic traffic for your podcast, how to ensure your podcast is safe and where it needs to be. This is crucial podcast hosting tips, how to strengthen your relationship with your podcast guests. It's all about follow-up. I'll teach you the podcast alumni connection strategy and how to create your own podrelationship cycle, how to use your podcast to grow your network and authority with existing and potential customers, 6 ways to generate revenue from your podcast, a little bonus there, how to build a podcast that serves your business, and then where to go to get support for your business podcast. If you need anything else, you know where to find me. I'm Toby Goodman, and you can head over to narrowpodcasting.com.